welcome to LTV News. I'm Nada Marche and these are top stories of today. A major earthquake hit central Myanmar, causing severe damage. Chinese company vows against Obama by filing an amended complaint. And the Kardashian sisters head to London for their new clothing line at the Kardashian collection. Starting off with our stories from the Middle East. An Israeli airstrike killed a Palestinian and injured others this week in the Gaza Strip. Palestinian fighters retaliated by firing rockets into southern Israel, and an Israeli airstrike targeted a rocket crew, killing a Palestinian militant. The airstrike came after a major clash that carried the risk of escalation, with Palestinian militants vowing to take revenge for the deaths of civilians. Israel warned residents of communities near the Gaza border to stay within 15 seconds of their blast shelters after an anti-tank missile hit an Israeli army jeep, wounding 4 soldiers. The casualty toll was one of the highest in a single incident in Gaza in recent months. Gun and mortar fire could be heard this week from the Syrian border town 3 days after it fell into rebels fighting. Refugees who had fled to Turkey said they feared retribution from the air. With what possessions they could carry, Syrians continued to cross the border into Turkey, saying they were scared to fighting and over the Assad's fighter planes and helicopters would be back. Pickup trucks could be seen driving through the city, clouded with smoke rising and mortars at gunfire. Rebels of the opposition groups have claimed towns before in a 19-month civil war, only to be pounded again by Assad's air force and shelled by his army. The Iraqi government stated this week that it has been cancelled a $4.2 billion deal to buy military jets, helicopters, missiles from Russia, citing possible corruption in the contract. In a confusing exchange, the announcement by Prime Minister Nouri al-Malki's office was immediately contradicted by the acting defence minister, who denied the corruption charges, claiming the deals were still valid. US military hardware remains key for Iraqi's armed forces, but security analysis said the Russian deal had appeared to open a way for Malki to resist US political pressure by diversifying his arms suppliers. Cancelling the arms deal could mean serious damage for the Russian reputation. And now more from the world news. With almost all ballots in Florida counted, US media projected President Barack Obama the winner in the state, 4 days after he won the week's national election. Florida brings his total of votes to 332 compared to 206 for Republican challenger Mitt Romney. Florida was the last state where the outcome was in doubt because there were 3 other countries were still counting the ballots. Obama had 50% of the vote in Florida and nearly all ballots counted. The president's lead stood at nearly 74,000 votes in total. The Democratic Party in Florida had declared victory and Republicans conceded defeat. Mexico has returned to normal after a 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck near Mexico's border this week. The quake mainly caused damages to buildings, with a few injuries reported. The business and daily life in Tapachula have returned to normal, but schools are still closed as there has still been some minor aftershocks. In Guatemala, more than 50 people were reported dead and hundreds of others injured, and rescues are still underway. Residents in Tapachula have been donating materials to self-raising stations, which will send the collected items to quake-hit region in the country. BBC Director General George Entwistle resigned this week just 2 months into the job after failing to get to grips with a child sex abuse scandal that has thrown the 90-year-old broadcaster into turmoil. He has faced widespread criticism since a rival broadcaster carried charges last month that a former BBC star, Jimmy Savile, is now said by police to be one of the most prolific sex offenders. Condemnation grew after the corporation made an embarrassing apology following an admission that the BBC's flagship news programme aired a mistaken allegation that an ex-politician sexually abused children. At least 14 people were killed in Pakistan's biggest city, Karachi, this week in an ongoing wave of violence. 5 people believed to be part of the religious group Ali Sunnat wal Jamaat, including students from a school, were killed while 6 others were injured in a firing incident. 8 people were killed in separate acts of target killing and violence in the city in the same week. A city of more than 18 million, Karachi has a long history of violence and ethnic disputes, and political rows can often explode into battles engulfing entire neighbourhoods. More than 400 people have been killed this year in this capital. A major earthquake hit central Myanmar this week, but reports suggested damage was limited and officials that had been contacted knew only 5 dead, although construction workers were missing. The 6.6 magnitude earthquake struck around 60 kilometres northwest of Mandalay. Shoppers were evacuated from the Myanmar Plaza shopping mall in Mandalay as a precaution. Several very strong aftershocks hit the region, but there were still no reports of serious damage. Residents in Bangkok, Thailand also felt the quake. Voting got underway in Slovenia's presidential election this week, with an incumbent seeking a second 5-year term. Some early voters were optimistic, while others seemed to think the president could do little to solve the country's woes. The election, marked by remarkably low-profile campaigning, might be decided in the second round if no candidate wins more than half of the votes third-time round. The country's troubled economy has seen a major turndown since the beginning of the crisis in Europe, an issue that had been dominating the lacklustre campaign. The role of president in Slovenia is mainly ceremonial. We continue our bulletin with some economic news. China's SGO retaliated this week that it will fight to an end in its efforts to sue US President Barack Obama for blocking its wind farm project deal in the United States. SGC, being a leading construct equipment manufacturer and one of China's most successful private companies, has been experiencing difficulties when trying to invest abroad in recent years. Last month, it filed an amended complaint against Obama and the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States in the District Court in Washington, claiming that the president's order of preventing it from owning 4 wind farms exceeding its constitutional rights and failed to provide detailed evidence. Zambia's plan to rebase its currency is aimed at countering inflation and reassuring investors, according to a senior official from the country's central bank. Zambia announced this month that it would rebase its currency, the Kwacha, from next year by looping off 3 zeros. The move is intended to counter inflation and reassure investors' confidence. As the rebasing policy has sparked discussions across the country, Mayonde said the fundamentals were the decision for the right use. In addition, he said investors who have pumped money in Zambia could be reassured that there will be no change in the value after the 3 zeros are chopped from the Kwacha. Now for some sports news. David Ferrer won Janko Tipsarevic in their ATP World Tour finals this week. Tipsarevic started brightly racing into the 1-5 lead before Ferrer started to fight back, but the Serb managed to hold on to the clinch the first set to 4-6. Ferrer was by far the dominant player in the second and third sets as Tipsarevic ran out of the steam. The results meant Switzerland's finished top of the Group B and will play local favourite Andy Murray in this week's evening session, while Juan Martin faces world number 1 Novak Djokovic in the first semi-finals in the afternoon session. Thousands of Taiwanese gathered for a mass yoga session this week in front of Taiwan's presidential palace. Organisers estimated about 7,400 people attended this event, which attracted yoga lovers from around the country. The hour-long session kicked off in the morning with a round of meditation. Then the 7,000 group of yoga enthusiasts bent their bodies into popular and complex positions. The participants, ranging from young adults to 80-year-olds, raved about the benefits of the ancient exercise. Coming to an end now with some art and culture. Thousands of screaming fans packed into a London shopping centre this week to get a glimpse of reality TV stars Kim, Kourtney and Khloe Kardashian. The famous sisters were in London to celebrate the launch of their clothing line, the Kardashian collection, in the UK. Fans queued for hours outside Westfield Shopping Centre in West London for a chance to meet their idols. The Kardashians' fashion collection is now available at high street retail chain Dorothy Perkins. Almost 100 young men and women gathered at an upscale restaurant in Beijing this week seeking their idol's special someone. November the 11th is a very special day for millions of young people across China and has become a Chinese pop culture holiday. Young folks were present at a gathering on a blind date hoping to bid farewell to their single lives. It all began with dinner. Each paid their own portion to show they are independent. But a blind date doesn't mean blind preparations, as organisers took special care to ensure that the people who were invited were all on the same page. Before we go, let's take a look at the top stories of today. A major earthquake hit central Myanmar, causing severe damage. Chinese company vows against Obama by filing an amended complaint. And the Kardashian sisters head to London for their new clothing line, the Kardashian collection. Thank you for watching. For more information, visit our website on www.levant.tv. Join us tomorrow at the same time, and until then, from all of us here at LTV News, goodbye.